We don't know.
So, hi everyone. Welcome, Resilient Sunshines, to a new episode of the Grit Makers podcast. And new episode of the podcast mean a new bunch of guests that are all amazing and resilient and very focused of building something for themselves and here to inspire you, inspire each other, and be inspired with their resilient stories. So, without further ado, I'll stop my blab. You know me, Mouna Laaragat. I'm the founder of the Grit Maker and the Grit Makers podcast. But I want our lovely guests to introduce themselves and their own definition of resilience. And today, I want to start with our guest who's going to pop by for the first half of the pod. So, Robyn, please do us the honor.
Hi, and thank you for having me today. It's an absolute pleasure. I've watched these. I love the one with Andy that you did a couple of weeks ago. And I think that, well, I'm Robyn. I'll start there, shall I, before I get too into the whole situation. So I'm Robyn, and I am lovingly named the Marketing Goblin. I have a digital media agency that is now based in Sweden, actually, which is a lot of fun. And my definition, my version of resilience, the one that I believe, not the one that we see everywhere, is for me, it's the quiet choice to decide to actually continue. It's my decision in the way that I want to do the next thing or follow through on the next thing, right? And this is what I believe is the quiet choice to continue forward, even when things don't look as great as you wanted them to be.
Wow, I love that. I love that. And I love the quietness of it, especially that talk about resilience is often like quite loud, quite about the toughness. And we have like this preconceived idea that Amitty and I have like tried to break this too. I know it because we work together so many times talking to founders being like, it is not how hard you can be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually refreshing to get the softness, from you. And we'll definitely talk more about that.
I've
Um,
gone at resilience hard before, trying to fill all the stereotypes that we see about just get up, just move forward, just do it. And for me, that has never worked. I have to make the decision to actually do it my way, to continue how I want to, or to stop and take a beat. So yeah, that's why I think that works better for me. I've never been able to do it the hard way.
wow. We're going to see what the others think. Tell us, Bilqis, I'll ask you to go next. Tell us a bit more about your version of things and also a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks, Mona, for having me. My name is Bilqis. I work for a sustainability business called Footsteps. I guess just before I go on the definition, my own definition of resilience, in terms of what I do on day to day at my work, has a lot to do with speaking to specifically food businesses to think about how we can prepare and create an environment for the future, um, around make them think topics around climate resilience through data and insights. So my personal definitions in relations to that is that we all have the capacity to combat or bounce back from any adversities that comes our way, but we also need to prepare for it, although a lot of what is coming our way is unknown. But we all have the experiences, we all collect data as we go through life, and we all have the ability to go through that. That's my definitions of resilience.
I love that. And I love as well how we can bring so many different angles around resilience and also different angles around entrepreneurship and sustainability And I come to that as well, entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship can be a spirit, but it's also understanding this capacity to run a business in the long term. So you don't necessarily need to be an entrepreneur to be able to advise others about how they can run their business in a more sustainable way. Um, and it's something to be very conscious about when running a business, making sure that all the systems, everything that is in place kind of makes sense, not for just for today, but for tomorrow and the day after. And of course, I can't go on this rant without introducing Amitty and let you speak your truth about your own definition and your own story.
Yeah, so first of all, I love both those definitions. I feel like I really resonate with those as well. I definitely don't think the pushing through and kind of like dusting yourself off and just keep going is effective anymore, especially with the kind of like environments that we live in, always on. Like, we need downtime. So I think I'll start with my definition and then I'll explain what I do. So I think it's very similar. It's a choice, right? But in order to be able to make that choice, my thoughts are we need to understand what our strengths and weaknesses are. And in a business, we need to understand what all of the ingredients of our business are. So we need that transparency, that understanding to be able to react to different situations in the best way possible. So that's kind of how I think about resilience. So it is for tomorrow, knowing what we have today so we can make it to tomorrow, knowing what we have in front of us and within us so we can make that choice to respond to whatever situation arises. And so I guess I've learned that definition through my work. So I'm an operational resilience specialist. So I work around kind of similar to sustainability, actually. So I feel like we have a very similar mission and like we need to work closer with people in sustainability, but it's really about how do we build things for a better tomorrow. And being able to respond to the unknown so we get to tomorrow.
Beautiful.
And I love that. I love the fact that, obviously, I know that you guys and you guys in the audience, please do share your own definition of resilience. Type in where you're dialing from. Let us know what you're doing and how things are for you. What are your missions? There's a reason why everyone is here in this room, and these crossroads that I was talking to you about before we went live. So that essentially, even Robyn in marketing is really looking at how we can do marketing for the long term. And it's something that attending her workshops, so when she's teaching or just participating in conversations with her within our community, I could see that each one of you guys have a lot to talk about. That's why we're in this room. There was one thing that bugged me and I was thinking about before we delved into this episode. And it came to, a lot of, we talk about long lasting processes and sustainability, whether it's in climate or even, mental health sustainability. We talk about long lasting processes to keep the operations going, right? And that's all good and nice. What I wanted to ask you is, have you ever faced a moment where it wasn't actually realistic to have something in place that lasts the long run and that you had to adjust with it, that thing that you had to piece together to help you in the now, that helped you build the after on, this long-term thing. But yeah, I want to do the reverse. I want us to be able to share with the audience, your own personal experience when, sometimes it wasn't realistic and what you had to do.
Yeah, I can go. So I love knowing where I'm going to end up. That is one of the things that makes me feel very stable and secure. So, for example, within all of my childhood, I knew that I was going to go to university, I was going to do my master's, I was going to go and get this kind of job, all those kind of things. I I love that. I love knowing where the end is. That gives me the reason to get up. I know what I'm doing next. Gives me that sense of security, right? It's that next thing. In 2014, I fell down the stairs and I suffered a severe brain bleed into the part of my brain that I didn't have usable vision for a very long time. I was classed as blind. I now can't see out of this eye either. And all of a sudden, I went from knowing to not knowing what the next thing was. I've always been incredibly capable. I've had a wonderful family. Everything was great, but all of a sudden, I wasn't on that same path in one moment, right? One moment changed everything. And my God, Mouna, I spiraled more than a tornado in The Wizard of Oz. Everything was blown apart for me. And my normal way of dealing with things, I couldn't do anymore. So everything had to change for me, and it wasn't comfortable for me. Trying to find a new level of resilience, a new understanding of what resilience was in that moment, not my normal, like, if I get up today, that means I'm one step closer to this, X, Y, and Z. It totally changed for me. So that was a moment where I was like, oh, it's not always how we assume it's going to go, right? So yeah, that was it for me. 2014, December the 14th.
I have a question actually about this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So if you were to think about kind of like how you approach things now versus the way that you were, did you eventually come back to a similar way, or do you have a completely new perspective on things now? Like where did the cards land, and like how did that kind of shape for you?
So straight during the time after my accident, I had to relearn how to exist in the world, really. Even to the point where I all of a sudden couldn't get around my house. I couldn't use my phone the way that I normally would, all those kind of things. And I would say that I became a bit of a caterpillar in a cocoon. I became mush for a very long time. I would say I wasn't even thinking about what I was going to do next or how I was even dealing with things. I just, as a human, we have basic Tamagotchi needs, right? So we get up, we have to eat, we have to go outside. And that's what it was for pretty much a long while. But when I started to get my fire started to come back and the ashes began to kind of smolder again, I realized I couldn't be as gripped on to the things as before. So I would say I'm not going to say that I'm like as mellow as the ocean, but if something changes now, I can take a deep breath. Whereas before I'd be like, no, and I would purposely try and force my way back on that same path. Kicking, screaming, bulldozing, whatever was in my way. So I do think it has changed me, but innately, I still seek that comfort of knowing where I'm going and how I get there. And that's resilience also to me. Like, I know where I want to be. So each day I do something towards that thing. And when that changes, it still makes me incredibly uncomfortable, like a cactus, but I'm more able to deal with that. But I still seek comfort in the known rather than the unknown, really.
Yeah, it's like a cactus that has grown an extra branch. So you've got the extra piece of learning that you've gathered, and still, it's still very uncomfortable. I don't think. I was going to say, yeah, maybe there are some things we can be excited about, like the birthday surprise. Uh, Not necessarily be excited about the change that will completely redefine your business and your career and your body and your health and the way you walk, the way you eat, the way you speak. Thank you so much, Robyn, for sharing your experience. I know in the audience, a lot of people can relate to that, especially that we do have one health, and it's very important. Unfortunately, when you get reminded, everything breaks down.
I totally agree with that statement.
Now, ladies, how does it make you feel? Does it echo with something you have also lived in your no path on your end, Amitty or Bilqis?
Well, I think, well, thanks, Robyn, for sharing. I think it takes a lot of courage and vulnerable. I mean, I just got to know you today, but I'm sure it takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to share that. And yeah, I personally, I think we all go through life. It's always easier to find comfort in the known. But I think our day-to-day life, like this sense of control that we want, but somehow I think Robyn, you also allude to that, like you build the structure, you know where you're going to, and um, you are open to what's coming your way, regardless is according to your plan or not. I guess I don't have similar experience. I guess my personal experience growing up is like I always want to be out there traveling. Um, and I I growing up was building step by steps just to be out there. And that I was really, really lucky that got me into living in South Korea and eventually in the UK. And I still have that travel bug, and eventually became a cabin crew for for British Airways, and sort of like see the world through. It sort of became a dream come true until it didn't. So I think I was enjoying life for a couple of years, and I think it was living in that moment. I'm like, I'm living my dream now, but I'm not happy. And I think just coming back to the questions on it wasn't realistic, and what I need to do to move forward, and how can I think that's where I think a lot around how can I create an impact for myself, for my family, and um, hopefully to the world. And that's where I start having like a structure and building my life towards moving away from chasing the high, and try to be more stable and resilient.
And yeah, you've been really chasing the high on a on all possible levels, flying around the world. Um, I think that's there is so much like that resonates in what you're saying, and definitely something experiencing at the moment after going around and traveling so much, just feeling this need to just settle a little bit. And I say it, and some people in the audience would recognize that because we spoke about it yesterday. Not settle for something, but settle in, settle into who you want to become, like, and truly appreciate being. Um, and it requires some changes. And sometimes there are certain things that worked for us that we needed to fix and nurture in a short time so we could build something bigger, bigger than us, bigger maybe that would relate to, you know, family values, or that would relate to the impact we want to make in this world. So how was it? How was that transformation for you, Amitty?
It's really interesting because, like, I see myself in both stories. I was like similar to Robyn, you know. I'm like, I've always been super ambitious, and like I would just get what I wanted without failure. Like there was no way I wasn't going to get to whatever I had set my mind to. And my dream actually as a child was always like, I just want to travel the world and like speak as many languages as possible. I just want to like be everywhere because I love talking as well. And so I started traveling in the last 6 years, and like trying to be a complete control freak and travel the world and live out of a suitcase for 6 years really changes you. So I started with like, this is the transition. I started with 6 suitcases that I would travel everywhere with all my things like gym, this, that, even pillows. Like I just was so, and then now I'm like, I can wear the same thing all week and not care and just have like 2 suitcases of, I mean, I've not gotten over the gym. The gym has to come with me everywhere. Like I pack all my stuff in. But yeah, it's like, I feel like at some point you have an experience where you're trying to be yourself and it's maybe not fulfilling, or it's just so extremely difficult and unnecessarily difficult. You're like, okay, something has to change or something has to give. And then in the same token, I think like we grow as we have experiences. And so this concept of settling in, like you go through a phase where you're trying to figure out who you are when you're quite young. And I think it makes sense to be a little bit settled because, you know, you need to figure and find your footing. Then you can kind of dive into stuff, experiment a bit, learn about yourself. And then at some point you're like, okay, I feel like I know who I am and what I want. I'm comfortable to settle into this part of my life. So I feel like I can resonate with a lot of what everybody's saying.
And it's like, is it like something that, because we talk about like, you know, this need to control. And at the same time, in mental health, we talk about the importance of letting go of certain things, letting go of certain attachments. And probably I think in business, it can also relate to, okay, the process that doesn't serve the business anymore might need to be adjusted. So we speak about, and I think Hedy in previous episodes mentioned the need to juggle between polarities and to accept both sides of the same coin. And I think, is there this need to do so to really want to go for the long run? In any of your respective industries, what are the choices of the coin that you deal with personally? Like, what is this thing that requires control, and what is this thing that needed to be let go of so you can ensure, you know, sustainability in the food industry, in operational resilience, in marketing? What were these things? Would you like to go first, Robyn? I'm very conscious to pick your brain.
Yeah, so I see many polarities in many reasons when I'm talking to founders, when it comes to their marketing. And the biggest polarity that I actually see is belief and fear. Because when you're outsourcing something to somebody, or you're getting help from somebody to something, you're trying to fulfill a need that you can't fulfill, right? So it's, you know, you don't have the time, the energy, the joy, the care to actually worry about your marketing, like, but you know you need it to feed your business. So it's already an internal battle anyway for somebody to do that, because often I work with a lot in startups. They're beautifully messy, they're beautifully quick, they're beautifully pivoty, changing, all those like jargony words. But that deep-rooted polarity of fear and belief comes out in so many ways. So like we get the micromanagers, and then we get the people that are, they don't really know what they're paying for, and then we get like the X, Y, and Z, and it always comes out as miscommunication out of that, because it's always driven by this, like, I know I need to, but I don't know how, or I need this, but I'm fearful of this. And I see that a lot. So actually, a lot of my conversations in the first 6 months of working with somebody, I'm like, what would make this better if you could see more of? What do you need to understand to feel more comfortable? And yeah, I think it's belief and fear. That's the biggest polarity I see. But then I also see the difference between consistency and motivation in moving forward as well. So yeah, maybe I should like train as in like therapy as well, because like I feel I could do better to help people if I had that under my kind of in my bow as well. But I see so much polarity in belief, fear, consistency, motivation, energy, and also like tiredness, extreme kind of need to actually understanding what's the difference between a want and a need. I'm very lucky to be able to see into those aspects of people actually, and support the people to actually move forward past those roller coasters that they go through when outsourcing anything to anybody.
It is to do with people management, and I think everyone could benefit from management or leadership or coaching training or psychology training. I think we are people and we deal with people in our day-to-day life and can benefit from getting to know how we as humans are shaped. How can we be so different from each other? How can we be identical in certain points? And I think that has that is inherently how we can create psychologically safer spaces in the workplace, how we can create better relationships with our loved ones, even with the ones we don't love, to be honest. um, it's it's really something crucial. um, but yeah, absolutely, really grateful for your take and sharing your story and your experience. Meanwhile, I'd like to understand how these two coins appear for you, Bilqis. Is this something that you have noticed either in your life or your current position, that there is this place that needs to be controlled or needs to be let go of?
Yeah, I think it's fairly similar to what Robyn has said. But often I work with businesses, especially in um, the sustainability space. I think we all see the news every day about different climate related issues, and I think a lot of businesses are already thinking about how we can um, in a way be sustainable in profitability, but at the same time also doing the right thing, everything we can to be, again, grow sustainability, protect the world, um, and the people and the community, um, as what we've seen in the community that affected by climate change, for example. So I see this battle, often the battle between in within the businesses, whether they want to focus on making more money, which is great. In the end of the day, the money, the profit will be shared out to the board and also the employees, or also the balance of doing the right thing, start making changes within the business, and also um, to some extent with the people they make business with, or to even cut business with people are not aligned with their values. And I think it's a challenge that I see. I think personally also it's a challenge I see in the business I'm with, but also how we go out there and actually support the business to come up with a business case. Often we want to support them to help them make more money, but at the same time, we all need to do all we can to prepare ourselves for the future.
It's a battle of a lifetime, isn't it? I
Yeah,
think.
money.
Eh,
No, we don't.
The
Yeah.
huge
yeah,
dilemma.
yeah. It's only fair to want to make money, but I think the more we discuss money and money mindsets, whether it's in entrepreneurship, whether it's in well-being, the more we come around to a fact of a certain sustainability of things. I have heard so many entrepreneurs today being like, I don't want to scale in order to make more, that is going to require more of my energy. but I want to scale in a way that it can be sustainable for me to spend more time with my family. And that has started making a difference in terms of what growth looks like. And maybe profit can be redefined by having more time, as opposed to
Love that.
more cash. Or you can have both. I think, yeah. What is it that they say? You can have it all, maybe not just at the same time. So learn to invest.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
about your coin, Minty, that you have had maybe to toss and find a way where we keep control and where we let go?
Yeah, I feel like it's like similar. I mean, I work with traditional businesses and big ones, and at the end of the day, they just care about the bottom line and, you know, the shareholder returns. So much like resilience, you have the regulated requirements and business requirements of, you know, incorporating your company in the covenants, and then regulatory or that space, and then you have like the growth that they want. And so, for some reason, anything that's considered sustainability or resilience or even like compliance is considered to be something that is like a trade off. Again, with like what Robyn was explaining before, where we're kind of like talking about, you know, the polarity between belief or even like scaling, just a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to move fast, and anytime they try and put balances in place or just pause for a minute to try and think about something and understand something, they see that as a risk to their traction. And I think in all of these situations, what I've learned to do is like figure out a way to reframe the problem. So like with businesses and also entrepreneurs and startups, when we talk about resilience and sustainability, we talk about it as a return on investment and kind of like a key success metric that we're trying to achieve. And so that's like, it's really just like a reframing. And I think we believe what everybody tells us the same way that everyone believes resilience is about bouncing back and like being so strong. But over time, if you work with people, I'm sure like it's a whole counseling and like educational piece and all of this type of stuff. You just have to sit with businesses and reframe the way they think about stuff and give them, you know, tangible examples of where it's been successful. And then people will tend to like jump on board with that. So yeah, there's always going to be coins and sides, but it's how you frame it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's about, well, I guess it comes down to mindset. And of course, don't blame the coach for talking about mindset, but it is coming down to how you choose to see that. And it's just funny because we're talking about coins, we're talking about polarities, we're talking about these things that we're helping live in harmony with each other. But that's because at the end of the day, it's a choice to look at the glass half full or look at the glass half empty. And you can also toss a coin and see one face, but still deep down know that there's the other side of the coin waiting for you. Is there a specific situation beyond what we spoke about that you've had to face and actively try to transform the way you were looking at it? You know, better with yourself with that. So was there a decision in the business or in your life that been challenging and that you had to read your vision about? Just take this time as you're thinking about it to thank the people in the audience. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Hedy, for joining. Thank you, Jarko. I hope I'm not absolutely ruining your name and that I'm pronouncing it right, for sharing your hellos from Finland and also a bit about your background and how you viewed resilience. I really love the fact that Jarko here in the chat has been telling us something, dun dun dun, that resilience is not easy to define. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I think we're too quick to talk about it, and we're even quicker to pull out a quick Google search, which is very good, and or the ChatGPT definition, which is very good. But I think resilience is not what we just state in a dictionary on it in its definition, but it's actually that's why I'm asking you guys. At that moment, you had to learn to look at things differently if you wanted to keep your sanity, you know.
Yes, so I will give you, just before I leave, for me, when I had to kind of take a moment to recognize that things weren't going to go the way that I assumed they would, is I had to learn very quickly when I started my business that people are not predictable and people are not me. They don't see the world the way I do. They don't have the same values that I do. They don't have the same experiences that have shaped how I do things and how I expect things to be done and all those kind of things. So for me, it was actually allowing space for oddity and space for the differences between us all. And I actually really used to suffer with like rejection and feedback, and it was just like, just because they're not saying it how I would fluff it and make it like a shit sandwich, I'd do like a nice thing and then the shit and then the other nice thing, right? People are blunter than I am. People do things in different ways than me, right? So that was the thing for me. I had to change the way that I expected things to go. And that was the one of the biggest kind of moments where I was like, I need to stop expecting so that I can experience and I can then take the unknown and move forward with that. That was one of my biggest learnings, actually.
Wow.
It was really funny. So when I first came to the UK, I was taught this concept of a shit sandwich because apparently Australians are really blunt.
So that you literal shit sandwich.
And so, like, yeah, my boss was like, when you want to say stuff, this is how you need to. And I was like, oh, because I'm just like, that's so shit. Why did we do this? Like, even at work, I'm so straightforward. Like, who came up with this? Why?
Oh no,
Yeah.
I'm British through and through. I apologize for existing. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, but I honestly needed to recognize that people just don't see the world the way that I see it through my lenses, my experience, my values. And it was a hard pill to swallow, actually, because not everybody also does things with joy, with care, with kindness. And that was hard for me. But I had to change how I approach that, or else I wouldn't have got as far as I had since opening my business and doing the great things I have.
And that is also so beautiful, right, Robyn? Because like you're unique, and your unique perspective, it's what is delivering value to the business that you work with.
I hope so.
That is definitely it. And it's super grateful to have like fantastic people like you on the pod to share your experience. Very, very grateful that you've taken the time. I know you need to go, but I'm super grateful for the extra minute, and the audience is definitely as well. So thank you.
It's been a true pleasure. I appreciate you all, and I will catch up after, I promise.
We're
Thank
definitely,
you, Robyn.
definitely. When I know so well with the beautiful transition that it really resonated with you guys. And I know when it comes to setting expectation and understanding that we're not shaped the same way, this is definitely something that you, Amitty, you had to face. And you learn from it. Is this something as well that you have had like some frictions about, Bilqis. Do you recognize that there's sometimes a difference between, well, your own way of thinking and seeing the world and some other people? And how do you
Uh,
manage?
oh yeah, I 100%. I mean, I was brought up in Malaysia, and very brought up the very Asian way. And I think growing up is just like, even in schools, right? If you do really, really well, it shows. Like there's nothing you need to do like to promote yourself. I been growing with this mindset of, as long I work hard, it shows. There's no way that, people won't see that I am delivering value and that I'm, the top class. However, when I moved to the UK, I think it's such a, I won't say a cultural shock, but I just wasn't thought in a different way. I think, especially in the corporate world, it's not just how hard you work, but you also have to ask for it. Because no matter how hard you work, if you don't ask for it, people won't give it to you. And that was, I think, for quite some time difficult for me to grasp, because I would ask quietly. I don't do it loudly. Um, but also in a way, like, like any other Asians that would definitely resonate with me. Like we don't we are very polite when we ask things. And I think just living in the UK had taught me so much in terms of, if you want something, if you want to achieve something, you need to put yourself out there. Of course, you need to set a certain kind of standards or metrics to achieve that certain success, but you need to shout out loud about it. And it was so hard for me to to get into it, to mold into it. But I think it has shaped and changed the way I view things. And it also helped me build resilience. I worked in sales. I face rejections every day, but I think that helped me build up um, the resilience of facing rejections. Of like, sure, rejection today might be a new I don't know, acceptance or new conversations tomorrow, and you just keep going.
Hmm, that is so
Yeah.
true. It's something, that only when you start your own business, when you're not in sales, and then you realize that how crucial that skill is, beyond the human skill, having this capacity to learn to ask.
Yeah.
Learn to ask, knock at doors, ask for people to, to listen, or ask them questions so you can understand how you can sell them the right product for their needs. And it is so hard to ask because I don't think we are taught to ask for help in general in any culture.
Yeah, 100%. Like even from career, or even if you're facing a downtime, you need to speak to someone. You just don't like. I just read yesterday, like 1.2 million people turn to ChatGPT and discuss about suicide, and that is really heartbreaking to see, because people don't feel safe or brave enough to ask for help.
Yeah, this is so
Yeah.
true. Um, I feel I don't know where it was. I was at a startup pitching session, and I mean the guy's pitch was amazing. It was based on this whole like it's not you, it's me, from a breakup, and so he decided to create like an online psychology chatbot because he was concerned that people are speaking to LLMs and it's not really trained in a way that's so like it was great. But this like some of the statistics that he said, I was like, wow, this is insane. So many people feel more comfortable to say things to something that may not could potentially gaslight them, and in most cases does, so yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like it's interesting that we don't have the confidence in space. um as well. I had a similar experience when I first came to the UK. It was the first English-speaking country that I had ever been to. So I was like, yeah, it's going to be so easy. I swear to you, it was like the biggest culture shock I'd ever had in my life. It was like, whoa, this is not what I expected. It felt like the wild, wild west. You know, the minute you stop treading water, like you just disappeared, and it's crazy. Like you really have to just like, you have to self-promote. You have to be like continual, consistent, a little bit aggressive sometimes, especially if you're trying to get on the train. Like you have to push people, you know? And it was just like, everything was like so out of my comfort zone. It's really good for growth, and it definitely does change you and the way you think about things. But yeah, I also notice when I'm at home, like sometimes my view of things and the way that I would go about it is a little different to like my friends who haven't traveled. They're like, oh, you're so bossy, you know? And I'm like, oh, I'm not like fighting. There's no people in Australia. I can calm down. Yeah.
It's true that we talk about it so much when it comes to global world, when we are either in employment or in entrepreneurship. As soon as you want to target new market, or when you migrate from your home country to other places, or when you travel a lot, you're confronted to this culture difference. And I think there is even a specialty. I think there is a resilience niche that has to do specifically with that, outside of the governmental resilience. But it's very interesting because for so long we were talking about that in marketing. We were talking about globalization, how to make your product global, how you can adapt to each country. And we created the Big Mac Index to try to understand the differences in pricing. And we forgot about the human being. So you learn how to go and how do you drink like a Japanese to close a deal with a Japanese, but you don't learn how to inherently like understand the human being behind that habit. And that's just because we forget these differences. Once you get into your rat race, your habits, you're just like thinking about your deal. You forget that this person comes from their background, has their own trauma, has their own generational issues and upbringing. And that's walking the room with you and with them. What's been like that turning point for you guys when you noticed that? Like outside of like moving to the UK, perhaps at work, when you met with someone from a different culture, what was that moment where you're like, oh, I need to zoom out here for a second and rethink about the human behind?
I mean, everything we teach in operational resilience, like this isn't an individual experience, but like, you know, with startup founders, they start with the human, right? I see this problem, I've lived this problem, I have this experience, now I'm going to productize this or turn it into a service, right? And then they build that. And in that process, they just forget that they're solving for this person. So they build this whole, you know, like there's, whether it's technologies, people, C-suite, and then like all this stuff is not always necessary, but they're just so caught up in that and like moving forward and trying to like get that validation. And actually the user sitting there being like, I don't need 90% of this, I just need this 10%. But you're not speaking to me, you're not coming back to the original problem, you're not checking in with me. And so I feel like that's really like common everywhere, because we just kind of like get very consumed in the moment. Not necessarily an individual thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I think mine is quite similar as well. Like, I think again, it's not also not an individual example, but I work with businesses, or I mean, this is not even a business example. Like from government perspective in the UK, they have like really set target for net zero to achieve you know, to make sure that the global doesn't warm up more than 1.5 degree. But a lot of the solutions were set, and for businesses to align to that, and food businesses specifically, a lot of them buy products from different countries, and different countries have different climate atmosphere, different climate environment. And a lot of this net zero target that was set, like from businesses perspective, they need to think about how we can reduce the impact or reduce the emissions to the supply chains that we bought it from. But too often businesses they forget about that. They just focus on profitability, again coming back to making money, and they are so gross on achieving a certain target, but they forgot to somehow, like, we need to work with the people that the businesses or the supply chains that we come from, which come from different countries, and how we can support them, how we can improve their life. Is there a human right policies in place, or what's their climate condition like? What products or how are they growing their crops? Stuff like that needs to take into consideration, and I'm sure like a lot of food businesses are already starting thinking about it right now. But too often when you work with business, they often think from the top down, not at the locality, not at the local level, which is often, that's always like a gap that people don't see. So yeah, I mean, I hope it's a great example. I kind of divert from the conversations there.
No, we never divert enough from the conversation, to be honest with you. They are made for that. It's the sole purpose of it. I'd like to thank everyone as well in the audience who is joining us live. Thank you so much for sharing your support. Thank you so much for sharing your own definitions of resilience. Please keep them coming. The more, the better, so we can finally change these preconceived set ideas and multiply the inspiration, because we are all unique and we all have unique views. And one process that works for you and your business today might not work for somebody else's business tomorrow, and even for yourself. So we need to adapt. Michelle was talking about adaptability in her definition of resilience. I think it's important, especially when you're creative, but also when you deal with people. You do have to be adaptable, and that's what we try to do. We talk about resilience, so we adjust and we start with a conversation point and we end up into another. And just like that, almost an hour has gone and we've had such great moments, and we already need to say goodbye. I just want to recap though before we do say our goodbyes, and give a chance to the audience if they want to drop a final question before we need to go. Please leave us the questions that you want us to answer. If we don't have the time to take them live, we will find a way to share with you the insight. But so far, it's been very interesting to look at things in a different way. Look at things as, instead of the hard stuff, looking at how you can bring quietness and softness in those changes that make impact. On the other hand, we tend to look at, okay, how did you put in place this process that lasted the long run? We also spoke about the fact that sometimes life throws shit at you that you have to deal with now, right? And with that, before thinking long term, you need to think about, okay, how do my internal system can handle the today in order for me to be able to, me sustainably, my mental health to allow me to keep going the long term and adjust. And we've understood the human aspect of things. We've understood the different battles between the polarities that are present ahead of us. And as I don't see any question from the public popping in, my last question for you, ladies, because we have an all ladies episode. I promise I don't do that on purpose. Or maybe I do consciously. But essentially, I want you to leave us with your final piece of wisdom that we don't talk about as a given. when we talk about resilience or sustainability or even mental health? What is that one little piece of wisdom out of the box? Blurt it out. First thing that comes to you that is not something that you've seen was put enough out there.
Um, I think for me, I think your audience spoke about adaptability. Um, I think for me, personally, like we cannot deal resilience. We have, like, as I mentioned earlier in my personal definitions, we have innate in us to overcome anything that throw our way. However, we are not made to be alone. So I think my personal belief in adapting to changes, adapting to resilience of what's coming our way, it's always better when we do it together. So for me, community, it's it's a big theme in my life. And I guess the message out there is like, you're not alone. Find your tribe, find someone that can support you with whatever you're going through with.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like that's so important, you know, um, especially because we're all a little like hesitant to share our problems, thinking that they're so like unique, you know. But a lot of the time, people are very like empathetic and understanding and actually have had similar instances. So I think that's super important advice. Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
What about you, Amitty?
Yeah.
I was just trying to think. Mine is not necessarily like something weird, like about resilience, but I think something that was interesting from today's conversation was like around this whole expectations and like rigidity. So again, it's the opposite of like that adaptability that you were saying. And so I think like the thing that I learned from, or the synopsis I have from what Robyn said was like, don't expect yourself from other people, especially in business. And I think that's a really important piece of advice. We spoke about localization, you know, like how do we adapt to different areas? And so I think like that's also a piece. You can't expect people on the other side of the world to have the same ideas of success, to have the same views of like even something, you know. So yeah, I think it's kind of like around that as well. So adaptability, not always being so rigid, and don't expect yourself from everybody because everyone's different. Yeah.
That's a beautiful summary.
Absolutely love that. And thank you so much, people, for listening in, either live or when you listen to the recording later. Thank you so much for acclaiming such amazing grit makers joining us every episode. I'm super grateful for you. Thank you so much again for your time. I'm ending the live now, and I wish everyone an amazing rest of the day.